When delving into the world of ancient Hellas, images of bloody battles and heroic sagas, valiant warriors and brilliant thinkers, as well as magnificent architectural structures whose unparalleled beauty and proportion continue to inspire creators and architects of today, inevitably come to mind. Among these glorious examples, legendary cities such as brilliant Athens and Sparta undoubtedly stand out. The ancient Greek world emerges as a unique cradle of civilization, its origins tracing back to the so-called Dark Ages of Greece, spanning the period from the 12th to the 9th centuries BC, and whose flourishing continued until the end of the era known as antiquity. However, it would be erroneous to imagine ancient or classical Greece as a single, monolithic power. Such a centralized ancient Greek state, with Athens or Sparta as its capital, never existed. Instead, it presented a vibrant tapestry of numerous city-states, or polis, each possessing its own system of governance, a unique form of authority, and developing along its distinct path. These independent entities forged various alliances, agreements, and trade treaties, striving for mutually beneficial cooperation. Yet, just as often, hostile relations arose between them, culminating in open military conflict. More broadly, their interactions were characterized by constant and often fierce rivalry, particularly between two of them whose ambitions and power were immense. Classical Greece, a period spanning approximately 2 centuries in the history of Hellenic culture, namely the 5th and 4th centuries BC, is one of the most significant and thoroughly studied. This historical epoch is primarily examined through the lens of Athenian sources, as Athens bequeathed an invaluable legacy, countless historical chronicles, dramatic works, philosophical treatises, and numerous other written works, surpassing in volume and variety the creations of other ancient Greek states. It was during this classical era that numerous wars occurred, echoes of which are forever etched in the annals of world history. At a time when the hegemony over certain Greek polis was drawing to a close, an unprecedented threat, capable of engulfing the entire Hellenic world, loomed over the horizon of ancient Hellas. This refers to the mighty Persian Empire, whose expansion in those years reached unparalleled proportions, stretching from east to west, from distant Bactria to the Arabian Sea coast, and subsequently absorbing Lydia, Babylon, Phoenicia, and Egypt. The Persians were renowned for their military prowess, their war machine and invasion tactics were unprecedented. Mainland Greece found itself under direct threat from this new, formidable conqueror, but it was precisely this mortal danger that served as a powerful impetus, prompting many disparate city-states to unite for the first time against a common foe. From this pivotal moment, the entire Greek world began to perceive itself as a unified entity, ready to repel external aggression. Thus, in 500 BC, the famous Ionian Revolt erupted, initiating a series of monumental events. The subsequent events led to the Persian invasion, which began in 492 BC. However, the first wave of invaders met fierce resistance and suffered a crushing defeat by 490 BC. A few years later, between 481 and 479 BC, Persia launched a second, much larger attempt to subjugate the Greek polis, but this too proved futile. Although Persian forces managed to penetrate deep into mainland Greece at a critical juncture, their advance was halted, and the invaders were vanquished. The famous and decisive battles of Thermopylae and Artemisium forever altered the course of history for the ancient Greeks. In total, the Persian attempt to conquer Greece spanned over 2 decades. And despite the incomparably greater might of the Persian Empire, thanks to outstanding military innovations, carefully devised strategy, and the unparalleled bravery of the Hellenes, this large-scale invasion was successfully repelled. In the legendary Thermopylae Pass, King Leonidas, leading 300 elite Spartan warriors and supported by allied Greek forces, heroically held back the furious onslaught of the countless Persian army for 3 days. This episode is not merely a page in historical chronicles but a vivid reflection of the Spartan way of life, finding its full embodiment in this epic battle. The lives of the Spartans were entirely dedicated to selfless devotion to the state and unwavering military duty. Notably, Spartan boys began a rigorous system of education and intensive military training from the age of 7. They lived in barracks, continuously honing their combat skills even in peacetime, which hardened their spirit and forged exceptional prowess in battle. Subsequently, under the aegis of Athens, the Delian League was formed, which over time evolved into a tool for strengthening Athenian influence. Athens' consistent successes inevitably led to open conflict with Sparta. The Peloponnesian War, which began in 431 BC, after a brief respite, reignited with renewed vigor, tipping the scales in Sparta's favor. In 404 BC, the Athenian power suffered a crushing defeat, and Sparta established itself as the most potent force in the Greek world. Although Sparta became the undisputed hegemon of Greece after the Peloponnesian War, the limited mindset of the Spartan military elite proved inadequate for such a large-scale and responsible role. In 395 BC, Spartan leaders decided to remove Lysander from power, after which Sparta lost its naval supremacy. Athens, Argos, Thebes, and Corinth, the latter two having previously been Spartan allies, dared to challenge Spartan dominance during the Corinthian War, which ended inconclusively in 387 BC. The Corinthian War clearly demonstrated the dynamics unfolding in Greece. While Athens and Sparta exhausted each other in endless battles, Thebes gradually gained strength, solidifying its position among the Greek city-states. In the same year, Sparta concluded the so-called Peace of Antalcidas with Persia. This agreement stipulated the transfer of Greek cities in Ionia and Cyprus to the Persians, thereby nullifying a century of Greek victories over Persia. Subsequently, Sparta attempted to further weaken Thebes, which provoked a military confrontation in which Thebes, paradoxically, allied with its long-standing adversary Athens in 378 BC. Spartan dominance over Thebes was finally undermined by a powerful popular uprising that erupted within the city itself. To understand the subsequent course of events, one must closely examine the origins of Sparta's military power. This ancient city-state, from its very foundation, chose a unique path of development, characterized by a diarchy, a system of governance in which two kings jointly led the state throughout its centuries-long history. The two royal dynasties, the Agiad and Eurypontid houses, passed down power through inheritance, ensuring the continuity of their ruling lines. Legends claim that the genealogies of these houses trace back to the legendary twins Eurysthenes and Proclus, descendants of Heracles himself, who are said to have conquered Sparta just 2 generations after the end of the Trojan War. The life of a Spartiate, a full citizen of Sparta, was both privileged and harsh. Immediately after birth, every Spartan boy was presented to a council of elders for a thorough examination. Any physical defects or flaws resulted in a ruthless verdict. The infant was cast into the nearest chasm, condemned to perish. At the age of 7, a boy who had passed this harsh selection left his family to begin formal education and military training. Disobedience to orders or showing the slightest fear in battle served as grounds for exclusion from the ranks of the Spartiates. Alongside the elite Spartiates, there existed lower castes whose members, or their ancestors, had lost their high status for various reasons. Each of these groups was designated by derogatory nicknames, such as inferiors or tremblers. After Athens' defeat in 404 BC, Sparta gained unlimited freedom of action, arbitrarily forming and dissolving alliances. This led to unpredictable consequences. Intoxicated by impunity, some Spartans, using their connections, engaged in military campaigns dictated by greed and opportunism, disregarding treaties and the norms of Greek morality. Meanwhile, their governments and officials turned a blind eye to these abuses, which naturally led to a decline in Sparta's prestige. Other Greek polis, both allies and adversaries, grew increasingly weary of Spartan hegemony, ultimately leading to the formation of a powerful anti-Spartan alliance. Sparta, striving to maintain its leading position in the Hellenic world, invariably relied on its legendary military might, whose army continued to be a formidable force. Spartan hoplites were still considered the benchmark of military art, yet their triumphs came at an increasingly heavy cost. Each victorious campaign resulted in significant losses, unsustainable for Sparta in the long run. Each gap in their ranks meant a reduction in valuable military manpower, necessary to restrain numerous enemies. Furthermore, it gradually became evident that Sparta's absolute dominance in traditional hoplite tactics was not eternal. In 390 BC, the Spartans were shocked by the defeat of an isolated detachment, which resulted in the deaths of approximately 250 warriors. At the same time, Sparta's adversaries, carefully studying the tactics of their main enemy, continuously refined their understanding of Spartan military strategy and tactics. Reverting to the events of 378 BC, it is worth noting that Sparta's dominance over Thebes was abruptly broken by a sudden popular uprising that flared up within the city itself. Following this victory, the Theban army underwent a profound reorganization and systematically began to liberate cities under the control of Spartan garrisons. Soon after, in 375 BC, the outstanding Theban general Pelopidas achieved a brilliant victory over superior Spartan forces. The incredible ascent of Thebes in such a short period could not but cause apprehension in Athens. The ancient metropolis watched Thebes' growing power with suspicion, and in response, Athens resumed strengthening its position by recreating the Second Athenian League. The culmination of the confrontation came in 371 BC, when the Theban army, led by the brilliant strategist Epaminondas, inflicted a crushing defeat on the Spartans in the famous Battle of Leuctra. Sparta suffered colossal losses, losing most of its army and 400 out of 2,000 citizen soldiers. This triumphant victory by Epaminondas marked the twilight of Spartan military glory and absolute dominion over Greece, bringing an end to the period of Spartan hegemony. The crushing defeat of the renowned Spartan hoplite army by Theban forces at the Battle of Leuctra in 371 BC marked not merely an end, but a fundamental upheaval in Greek military history, radically altering the established balance of power in Hellas. The old foundations of the brilliant 5th century were gradually crumbling, yet the image of Spartan military might had, until that point, remained an unshakable bastion. Only recently, the mere sight and fearsome tread of advancing Spartan warriors instilled terror in their adversaries, paralyzing their will long before the battle even began. However, upon closer examination of Sparta's history, known for its militaristic bent, the defeat at Leuctra ceases to appear as a mere accident. By the time of its confrontation with the Thebans, Sparta had long been experiencing a period of profound decline. The only question was when and who would be able to exploit its internal weaknesses. Thus, the story of Sparta's decline and ultimate fall serves as a compelling example of how closely intertwined a state's social structure and military power are. Laconia, as it turned out, was mired in intrigue, self-deception, and internal contradictions. During its heyday, when Sparta epitomized the Greek hoplite republic, it paradoxically proved incapable of raising sufficient hoplites to avert the impending military catastrophe. Despite never fully recovering from its losses, Sparta managed to retain its status as a regional power for over 2 centuries. Subsequently, the Spartans even formed an alliance with the Romans, and under Roman rule, Sparta was granted the status of a free city, becoming a popular retreat for the Roman aristocracy. However, at the end of AD 396, a tragic fate befell it: the city was plundered by the Visigoths.